Estoy excelente, gracias. ¿Cómo te llamas? Je m'appelle Joshua, ¿y toi? En serio, yo también me llamo Josué. Hola, la. Enchanté. Mucho gusto. Aprendo 2 idiomas a la vez. Je prends 2 langues à la même temps. Algo así. Learning 2 languages at the same time, French and Spanish, has been an absolute roller coaster. It has been challenging, but also one of the best experiences of my life. It has been quite challenging because I've had to answer questions that I never really had to answer before when I was just learning Spanish. When should I study French and when should I study Spanish? How long should I be studying each language? How many resources should I use? How do I prevent mixing up both languages? So, when do I study both languages? Well, I would say my language learning schedule is quite chaotic and I don't separate each language per day. For example, I don't study just Spanish on Monday and then on Tuesday I study French. I actually study both languages every single day. And honestly, I can't imagine myself just studying one language each day. Also, I don't have a strict language learning schedule at all. So basically, I just study both languages when I have time and when I have the energy to do so. I usually have more energy in the morning, so that's definitely when I try to focus on French, especially since I am a beginner in French. It takes a lot of energy out of me and it takes a lot of focus. But it really depends on the day because life is quite chaotic. So maybe some mornings I'm actually very tired and I don't want to do any language learning at all. Or I wouldn't say at all, but I don't want to do anything that is very intensive, like reading, for example. So this is why I don't have a strict study schedule. So I just have to figure out what I'm going to be studying day after day. As far as resources for French, I'm using Duolingo, I'm using Memrise, I listen to a few podcasts in French, and I'm also reading in French as well. So some news articles, but mainly one book in French. And some YouTube videos as well. I haven't been watching a lot of French movies and TV shows yet because, again, that goes back to the whole study schedule thing. It's been kind of challenging to fit those in my language learning routine. Oh, and I almost forgot, I just started using Hello Talk as well, so I'm also talking with this other language learner from France. And this is kind of embarrassing because I probably should have started using this application last year, but that's okay. Now for my Spanish resources, I listen to a lot of music in Spanish. I listen to podcasts in Spanish. I watch TV shows in Spanish. I have ITALKI lessons. I use Hello Talk. And in general, I just talk to many Spanish speakers throughout the week. Now, I don't want you to get the wrong idea. I don't use every single resource every single day. Again, it all depends on my schedule. For example, for French, maybe some days I can only read 2 pages or 3 pages of my book, and then I'll watch a few YouTube videos, and that will be it. Or maybe some days I'll listen to a podcast and I'll watch some YouTube videos, but I won't have enough time or energy to read. And the same thing goes with Spanish. So maybe some days I'm just listening to music all day and I'm talking to my friends in Spanish, and that is about it. Or maybe other days I have more time to read, so I put more effort into that. I read, I talk to my friends in Spanish, and I watch some YouTube videos in Spanish. Being very clear on what my goals are for learning French and Spanish have really helped me to not be so overwhelmed with balancing both of these languages. For example, I know with Spanish, I want to become more of an advanced Spanish learner. I want to increase my speaking skills, and I also want to maintain my fluency. Now, when it comes to French, I'm still just trying to learn the basics. I want to also become fluent at some point. So that is how I'm able to really focus on what resources I should be using and also what I should be focusing on. This is why I read a lot in both languages, because I know that I'm going to be increasing my vocabulary. I'm also going to be learning a lot about the grammar in both languages. Currently in French, I'm reading this book here, Short Stories in French. And one thing that I love to do right now is I'll read a sentence in French, and then right after that, I'll try to translate that to Spanish. Elle est allée dans le bureau d'Antoine. Antoine était un autre cadre de direction de l'entreprise. Ella es ahí en la oficina de Antoine. Antoine era otro algo, cadre en francés, yo no sé, de dirección de la empresa. So now you know why I don't study just Spanish one day and then French another day, because I like to combine both at the same time and really leverage my Spanish knowledge to help me learn French. So this is the very strange part about learning French and Spanish, because beforehand, right, I only knew my native language, English, and Spanish. So basically, I was only focusing on those two when I was translating and interpreting. But now I primarily try to do that in between French and Spanish. But as you can see just from that little example there, that there are many things that I don't know how to say in French just from Spanish, and vice versa. I could do the same thing, but by going in the opposite direction with my Spanish book. So I'll read one sentence here. Esa noche sueño que duerme o que duermo en la antigua habitación de ama en la casa de mamá Jacinta cuando de pronto se encendía. Now for French. Cette nuit solaire que j'ai dormi in la chambre. I don't know how to say old in French. Reading like this really helps me to understand the grammar in both languages and do a lot of comparison and contrast. For example, I just read me quedo in that Spanish book there, right? So me quedo is from the reflexive verb quedarse. So I have no idea if that exists in French. I really don't. So for me to go from me quedo to the equivalent in French, I wouldn't know how to do that. So as you can see just right there, it really helps me to understand what I don't know. This really makes me want to have a better knowledge of the Spanish language, because I really need to understand and have a good grasp on the grammar to be able to do this. So I know what the different meanings are of different phrases and things like that. For example, hace calor. So if I compare that to English, that means it is hot, right? But in English, it actually means, if you actually to translate that word to word, it is to make hot. Hace calor. So I don't know if this same grammar principle or grammar rule exists in French. So that is something that I have to find out as well. Did I say to make hot? I meant to say to make heat. I do just about the same thing when I'm thinking throughout the day. So I try to make sentences when I'm thinking in French, and then I'll try to figure out, oh, what is the Spanish version, and then vice versa. Or I'll just look at something and then I'll try to name that object. For example, I see the lamp right over there, so I'll say lamp in French. Lamp in French is les lampes. Se me olvidó. Pero en español es la lámpara. So I'll just go back and forth just like that. I love doing this when I'm speaking to myself as well. Yes, I do speak to myself a lot to improve my speaking skills in French and in Spanish. Also, since the beginning of this journey, I've always had the dream of being able to speak French, for example, while my friend is speaking to me in Spanish, but we both understand both of these languages. Or I'm speaking Spanish and then my friend is speaking French. So we're speaking two different languages at the same time. So I've been practicing for this very moment. Hola. Bonjour. ¿Cómo estás? Je suis très bien. ¿Et toi? Estoy excelente. Gracias. ¿Cómo te llamas? Je m'appelle Joshua. ¿Et toi? En serio, yo también me llamo Josué. Hola, la. Enchanté. Mucho gusto. ¿De dónde eres? Je viens de Minnesota, mais maintenant j'habite à Texas. ¿Et toi? Neta, yo también soy de Minnesota y ahora yo vivo en Texas. Yeah, I know it may seem very goofy, but trust me, it is so helpful. Vuelva la misma pregunta. So we kind of come back to the question of how do I not mix up the languages? And the answer to that is just I don't. I do mix up the languages a lot. And in my opinion, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. I think it's just a part of the process. It's also very natural. I think just me learning Spanish and French at the same time is bound to happen. For example, a few days ago, I said hace 2 años. So I was trying to say hace 2 años, but then I said hace, which is the Spanish part, and then 2 años or 2 años, algo así, is 2 years in French. I just see that as a small mistake, but also very funny. And overall, I just think that the more that I learn about the Spanish language and the more that I learn about the French language, it's going to be a lot easier to differentiate both of the languages. For example, in this notebook here, what I like to do is write down a sentence in French and then also right under that, put that sentence in Spanish. So here I have je ne sais pas. So that's French for I don't know. And then in Spanish, that is just no sé. So right there, I already see there's a clear difference in how you make sentences or how you negate sentences. So in French, you have to add this ne and then pas. But in Spanish, there's just no sé. You don't have to add additional words to negate it besides the no. I'd say that right now I am quite successful when it comes to learning French and Spanish at the same time, but it has taken a year and 7 months to get to where I'm at right now. It has been a very challenging road, but I won't say that it is perfect, right? There are still many challenges that I face. With French, I know that I should be studying a lot more, but that means I need to be more disciplined. I had to stop procrastinating because one thing is that it's really hard for me to turn off my Spanish music because I'm absolutely obsessed with music in Spanish. I love listening to bachata, merengue, salsa, and I'm not going to go on about that. But it's so hard for me to turn that off and then just start to, read a book in French or listen to a podcast in French. So that goes again back to the whole trying to balance both languages. So I need to be more disciplined, stop procrastinating so much. And I definitely need to speak a lot more French, and I need to listen to a lot more French as well, which I have not been doing enough of. If you didn't know, you can now become a member of this channel. You'll be able to support this channel and connect with me more every single month. Check out the link in the description box for more information. Now you know how I'm learning French and Spanish at the same time. Now, if you want to learn more about my Spanish learning journey, watch this next video.